Hi, I'm Dr. Lee Hildebrand. I am the director and a psychologist at Lakeshore Psychology Services in Mequon, Wisconsin. I'm coming to you today to talk about a topic that is getting a lot of attention, and that is coping with toxic people. I recently wrote a blog on this and had a lot of feedback where people indicated that it was just very timely and that they're dealing with people in their lives that are very distressing to them. Now, when you think about toxic people, we all know about certain people in our lives that no matter what we try to do in terms of treating them well or assuming the best about them, that they just seem to relate and interact with us in ways that are distressing. Causes tremendous distress. You know what I mean when you walk away from a situation and you feel this residual kind of angst or this ick about how that interaction led you to feel. So these people in our lives, they can be family members, they can be in-laws, they can be siblings, they can be people that we work with, they can be our boss or other coworkers, they can be a neighbor, or they can just be acquaintances or people that we run into in friend groups and whatnot that you don't have the right vibe with, that you don't get along with. Oftentimes in situations you can try to take the high road with certain people like this, and it just seems like they always go to the low road. You can try to be friendly or relatable, and they just don't respond in kind. Now, sometimes you can find out that people that are toxic to you, or people that when you have interactions with that you just feel like it just goes in a negative direction, are actually narcissists. Now, without getting technical, the definition of a narcissist is somebody that, regardless of the situation or your interactions, they seem to constantly be seeking to find a way to make the situation about them. You know these people that I'm talking about. They're people that you'll like their social media posts or respond positively to situations in their life, or be excited when they get a new car, or compliment them on how they decorate their house. And yet they just are not going to give any attention to you or what you're doing or anything of that nature. In fact, they literally will ignore it. They will ignore the situation because they see it as a threat. They see it as a threat to them, that you're being successful or that positive things are happening in your life. And in conversation, they're always often going to be polling for you to pay attention to them, for you to listen to them, for you to empathize with them. And they are not going to give you that in kind. So that is one example of a very toxic type of personality style that you might encounter. Another important one, and that I've had clients run into in relationships and other situations, is a borderline personality. And with a borderline personality, in simple terms, there's a vacillation from at one moment being very charming, very charismatic, convincing you that you're just amazing, and then it will shift to you are the worst person on earth, you're hurting me, and they just come at you with a scorched earth approach to the situation. Now, if you have a bad business dealing with somebody with this personality type, you better watch out, because they are going to come after you. They're going to try to hurt you with insults. They're going to try to sue you. They're the person that would be like a dog with a bone, and you try to take the bone out of their mouth, and they just bite down even harder. They're not going to release that. They're not going to let go of that. That's another example of a personality type that can just feel very toxic when you're trying to deal with them. Now, I'm not trying to disparage specifically people that may have these kind of personality manifestations or mental health types of issues, but I'm trying to instead give you information when you experience certain phenomena in relationships and think to yourself, boy, this is a toxic relationship. Characteristics that are very tough to deal with. Now let's talk about how you can cope with and you can deal with these situations. The first and foremost thing that you can do is this, and that is to set boundaries in regard to the person that you're dealing with. And boundaries are basically what separates you from them. Boundaries are things that you get to choose in related to your interactions, how often you interact, how much you interact, and the ways that you interact. And boundaries are very important in relationships. So with a person that you experience as being toxic in your life, it's going to be important to be able to set these boundaries. Ask yourself important questions like, how often do I need to be around this person? What situations and interactions usually are a bit more safe in the context of this person than not safe? With certain toxic people in my life, quite frankly, I will think about this strategically in regard to how much interaction, trying to put some reasonable limits on that. And then also, what kind of activities are we doing, or what kind of activities are a part of that interaction, so that I'm creating a situation where there's the utmost amount of success in just not having that icky feeling with the toxic types of characteristics that they'll bring to the interaction. So those are important questions to answer in regard to dealing with a toxic person. The second thing is, it's very important that when you're trying to do your best with a person that you experience as toxic, and you've taken an inventory of yourself and asked yourself, is there any way that I'm contributing negative energy to this situation, or did I handle something inappropriately? And if your answer is no, when you carefully evaluate that, then you need to stop blaming yourself for that relationship not working. Even if it's a family type relationship that seems like it should be close, potentially like a mother or a father, for instance, you need to stop blaming yourself for that relationship not being where you want it to be. Clearly in that situation you have tried to be gracious, you've tried to work with the characteristics of this person, and they just continue to bring a bad vibe. They continue to be critical of you. They continue to not recognize the essence of who you truly are. They continue to negate you in regard to your personhood and your presence. So stop blaming yourself. Some of us can be so conscientious and wanting to have other people in our lives like us that unfortunately we can begin blaming ourselves in the situation instead of turning our eyes toward where probably more of the responsibility is. So don't blame yourself in these kinds of situations. Now, let's say you do a careful inventory and you come up with something or some way that maybe you've not interacted with that person in the right ways. If it's kind of more of that mutual kind of thing, then clean your side of the street. Make things right with that person. Acknowledge you're wrong and make amends. Ask for their forgiveness for something that maybe you've done. And then once you've done that, try to relate to them the best that you can. And if they continue to bring negativity, then you go back to the step of assessing the boundaries. Now, a third potential approach to the situation with somebody that seems to be toxic in your life is to really ask the question, do I need to spend time with or be in relationship with this person? If this is not an obligatory relationship, like a coworker kind of situation or a family member that you probably are going to want to spend some time with, And actually, maybe even in those relationships, you might consider this option if it's bad enough. And this option is kind of like the nuclear option, and that is to disconnect from the relationship, to end the relationship, and discontinue any interaction with that person. There probably are, or there may be situations that you will experience in your life where the most healthy thing to do is to end the relationship. People sometimes get into romantic relationships where at the beginning they feel like these are the positives and these are the negatives, and the positives are very high. But as they get to know that person and get past the honeymoon phase, the positives start to diminish and the negatives can increase. And sometimes people find themselves being in relationships like this for some time, and they can feel stuck. And they keep trying and trying to make the relationship work. And the other person continues to bring negativity and is not adding value to the relationship. And so it's very important to be able to literally call it a day in situations where we've tried everything that we can try and it doesn't seem to be working. Now, in a marriage relationship, I would recommend at least trying to get some counseling. At least sitting down with someone and really going through things, especially if there's kids involved. You want to take that kind of decision for the nuclear option very conscientiously, of course. But sometimes it can be just as damaging to stay in a relationship with a toxic person, for example, a narcissist, than it is to find a road to discontinue the relationship. It is literally emotionally impossible to have a healthy relationship with a narcissist. And I would indicate potentially the same is true with somebody that has unmanaged borderline personality. Those can be very difficult to have a healthy relationship with somebody. So seek discernment in regard to knowing which option is the best for you. You might communicate with a coach or a psychologist like myself or a counselor to get some input on how to navigate this. The most important thing, though, that I want you to take away from our time today is that you have a choice in regard to who you relate to, who you are in relationship with. It is an active choice. You are not forced to be in relationships with people, and you should not feel that you are forced to be in relationships with people. Your needs, your perspective, your viewpoints are important. And I think one thing that really brought this home to me is one time I was talking with an awesome neighbor of mine. And she looked at me and we were talking about a certain situation, and she said, Lee, I've reached an age in my life where I am not going to spend time with people that I don't want to during my free time. When I'm not working or I'm not in situations where sometimes I do have to be around certain people. And that really struck me because I think it's important that we are conscious to choose people in our lives to the best of our ability that are reciprocal to us, that we bring something to them and they bring something to us. Unless it's a mentoring relationship, that's different, or a relationship where we are primarily the receiver, such as if we're getting counseling from somebody or we're being mentored. Most relationships and friendships, etc., that you have, you want it to be reciprocal. You want give and you want take. It can't just be one way or the other. These are important principles to think about. I hope that you found this helpful. I just want to encourage you in regard to having the best life that you can relationally, in terms of finding people that understand you, that get you, that want to encourage you, and that are there to help make your life the best life that you can. So I hope that this is something that you will pass on to friends or others that you think could benefit from my video today. And I thank you for taking the time to watch it. And I wish you sincerely the best. I hope you have a successful day. And remember today, as you're going through your day, look for opportunities. Look for opportunities in your life. Don't focus on the obstacles. Focus on the opportunities. If you're looking for the obstacles, you'll see the obstacles. If you're watching for the opportunities, you'll see opportunities in terms of having a successful day. Wishing you the best. Thanks again. Take care.